Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video we'll be taking a look at the 2024 Texas Senate election and my first in-depth preview of this race. I've talked a little bit more specifically about Montana and Ohio, and so today we'll be just looking at Texas. Someone suggested this when I asked for video ideas, and I thought it would do. So we're going to look at this race, and we're going to just see what the odds are of a Democratic flip. Because, again, I think at this point in time, we all know that this is a race the Republicans are at least favored to win. Now, by how much? Depends on who you ask. I have this race to lean Republicans, so they do have an advantage, but certainly not an insurmountable one, and certainly not one that I could that I think is super likely to hold. I could definitely see myself moving it to toss-up on Election Day, if Trump continues to fall nationwide, if Ted Cruz approval rating falls, if Colin Allred, who will likely be the Democratic nominee, if he really gains traction in the polls, a lot of things can change. And so I think that I would have a really hard time moving this race to likely Republican, but I would not have a hard time moving it to toss-up. And so it's certainly on the closer end of lean Republican, and it's an interesting race. It's also the only potential pick-up opportunity for Democrats realistically. The second best would probably be Florida, but we all know that's not going to happen. Behind Florida, it's really nothing. So Texas will absolutely be their number one target come 2024, and I think it's actually the only seat that will be competitive that is currently held by Republicans. So let's take a look at this race, and I think the best place to start is to look at Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz is the GOP incumbent. He will be the focus of a lot of attacks from Colin Allred, who, in case you don't know, is, like I said, he's likely the Democratic nominee, but he is a congressman from the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, and he flipped a seat in 2018, so he's a pretty decent candidate. I would say maybe not the best. Obviously, in Senate races like this, you'd like to run a statewide official, but Democrats in Texas have not won a statewide race in decades, so that is not an option for them. But they do have Colin Allred, who I would say is one of their better candidates. Now, just to kind of take a look at Ted Cruz, he's not a very popular senator. If you look at the rankings for most popular senators, he's nowhere near the top. I think he's actually in the bottom 10 or bottom 15. And as you can see here, if we zoom in, at the moment, as of June 2023, so 2 months ago, which is pretty recent for an approval poll, he has a 45% approval rating and a 42% disapproval rating. This is better than, say, February, where he was -6. And in 2018, when he ran for re-election, we'll go to October 2018, he had a higher approval rating than he does now. So he's potentially a vulnerable incumbent. And I would definitely argue that the demographics of Texas in 2024, no matter what you think of the race, are more favorable to Democrats than they were then. So, for example, Texas in the 2021 census, I think it was the first time it was the results of the census. I think it was the first time that the state was plurality Hispanic. There are more Hispanic people in Texas than white people for the first time ever, and so obviously that might have in 2018. We don't have 2018 census numbers because there was no such thing conducted that year, but 2024 will likely be a more Hispanic electorate than 2018. Now you could argue that doesn't really help Democrats too much. We'll get into that later, but the demographics itself of Texas are going to be more favorable. We also have trends, I would say, even among white voters in the suburbs. If you look at the 2020 election results relative to the country, Tarrant County was much more Democratic than it was in 2018. Obviously, Beto O'Rourke did win it, but he won Tarrant by 0.7, while the Democrats won nationwide by 8.6. So this county was still 8% to the right of the country, and then in 2020, it was only 4% to the right of the country. So it's a left-running county, and if you go to Denton and Collin, Denton voted for Trump by 8. Collin voted for Trump by 4.5. Ted Cruz, he won Denton by 8 as well, again, in a bluer environment, and he won Collin by a good amount more than Trump. So Biden outran Beto in a lot of these suburbs in Dallas-Fort Worth, despite losing by more statewide and despite winning by less, by his party winning by less at a nationwide level. So to that extent, I would definitely argue Texas is more favorable fundamentally for Democrats in 2024. But there are other things to consider. 2018, like I said, D plus 8.6 national environment. Even if you believe in the blue wave 2024, do not think it's going to be that favorable of an environment for Democrats. I would say Biden's realistic ceiling for popular votes is probably 6 or 7 points, if that. I'm currently predicting him to win by like 5 nationwide, maybe even less. I think the general electorate will be very similar to 2020, maybe a tad more Democratic, but not anything substantial. And so in a D+5 electorate in 2024, if Texas stays the same way, right, because Texas in 2020 voted a 10% to the right of the country exactly, actually. If the country gets only a point bluer and it doesn't trend, it's only 9% to the right of the country, and then Biden would lose Texas by 5. Now, trends, maybe you say it moot, because in 2016 it voted I believe 12% to the right of the country, and then in 2020 did trend 2 points to the left relative, so maybe it votes 8% to the left of the country, and then if Biden wins nationwide by 5.5, he's only down to a 2.5 margin of defeat, and then from there, that's enough for Colin Allred to outrun Biden and win against Ted Cruz. But that's a lot of, right, like we're doing a lot of hypothetical mental math, and that's not really a smart thing to do, because again, when you overcomplicate politics, when you make adjustments that don't really make a ton of sense, it's very, very hard to justify those arguments. And again, this is one of the things I do when I'm predicting an election. This is what I think really helped me out in 2022. If you cannot articulate your reason for a prediction in under 10 seconds, you are going to be wrong. I have never once made a prediction that I couldn't piece together in a logical 1 or 2 sentence phrased, right? My election predictions should never be monologues. They should be 10-second, just this is why I think this. And for Texas, for Democrats in 2024, at least, I don't think you can do that. Now, we're going to look at it, and that's why this is a 10-minute video, not a 10-second monologue. But still, at the end of the day, I really, that's fundamentally why I'm doubtful about Democrats in Texas. I really think the path for them is just less straightforward than it is for the GOP, and that's why I'm going to stick with the lean Republican rating. But that being said, obviously, let's talk about it. So, we'll just start with the Rio Grande Valley. I don't want to say too much about this region because it's a relatively small portion of the electorate, but it's still interesting. I don't know the composite numbers for 2020 and 2018. What I'll tell you is that in the major counties, Biden underperformed Beto everywhere in the border region, but he did better relative in the major counties than in the small ones like Zapata, which, by the way, Biden lost by 5 and Beto won by 26. So that's obviously not good. But when you look at, say, Hidalgo or Webb, Hidalgo right here, Biden got 130K votes, won that by 17. Beto obviously did better. He won it by 39 or 38. So still a pretty bad underperformance on the part of Biden, but less so than the smaller counties. Then Webb County, which Beto won by a pretty substantial 43-point margin. Biden obviously did pretty well there as well. He won it by 24. So Biden underperformed Beto everywhere, like I said, but he does better in the big counties like Webb and Hidalgo, which obviously that's where I believe Laredo is the largest city in Webb, and I believe McAllen's the largest city in Hidalgo. So I would expect these counties in 2024. I think Biden's going to do pretty poorly in these areas, if we're being honest. I don't really think he'll improve much. But Colin Allred, I would say, can do better than Biden. It's just a down ballot area for Democrats, and if Biden can stop the bleeding like at a federal level, I think Allred can maybe win back Zapata. I'm not sure about that, but maybe it's a possibility because MJ Hager did win it in 2020, and I would say Allred will likely do better than Biden in Hidalgo and Webb. And so that doesn't mean much. Obviously, Colin Allred will do worse than Beto in the border region, but I think he'll outrun Biden. So maybe he'll do, if we have a scale, right, and you have Biden 2020 all the way to Beto 2018, I would say Allred is closer to Biden 2020, but he's going to do better. So RGV doesn't really matter too much, though. It's not a very large area of the state, especially compared to the metros. Houston's a problem for Democrats. Harris County needs to really get better for them before they can reliably win statewide. Biden only won it by 13 in 2020. In 2018, Beto O'Rourke won it by 17. I think that's the margin Colin Allred's going to get. Harris itself, I would say, is a little left trending, especially when you look at the suburbs in the northern part of the county. They're getting wealthy, they're growing, they're diversifying, they're getting bluer. And Allred, I would expect to do better than Biden in the city of Houston just because of down ballot lag. So for that reason, let's say Biden wins Harris by 17 or 18. I think Allred maybe wins it by 20, which would be really good. Obviously, if Democrats are hitting 60 in Harris County, they're going to do well statewide. So that's why I would say 20% is a kind of a if you came from the future and told me Allred wins Harris by 20, I think he's in a 50-50 race. I'll say he wins by 18 or 19, so maybe does a point better than Biden, but still, it's a big county. A point matters. And then to go over to San Antonio, Bexar County voted for Beto O'Rourke by 20, voted for Biden by, I believe, 18 rather. And Again, Bexar County was going to swing left. I'm very confident in that. It swung left by a good amount in 25%. I think it swings maybe 2 or 3 points more to the left in 20, maybe more, maybe 4% in 2020, and that is another area where already can improve. Ted Cruz is not really popular in Bexar County. This is a pretty bad showing in a midterm, losing bit by 20. I think Ted Cruz is going to have a lot of problems there. I think same thing in Austin. Travis County voted for Beto by 50 in 2020, voted for Biden by 45, and Biden already did very well there. So I would say Travis County is another county where Allred can outrun Biden. Just Ted Cruz is really hated there for some reason. It's a lot of progressive voters, very young, who maybe aren't the most enthusiastic with Biden, but are going to really, really want to knock off Ted Cruz. Then Williamson County, not Travis. Williamson voted for Biden by about a point in 2020. Beto O'Rourke won it by 3. So again, Ted Cruz underperformed Trump here in a midterm environment. I understand it was bluer, but these suburbs should really not be that bad for a Republican. So I think Allred, despite the fact it's a down ballot race, I think he can really outrun Biden here. Maybe Biden wins it by 3 or 4. I think Allred can win it by 6 if he's lucky. So again, most of these suburbs, I'm expecting Allred to outperform Biden just because Ted Cruz is so toxic. I think Democrats are going to make a point of hitting Ted, and also Donald Trump, but I think Ted Cruz, this is an even better line of attack for Trump than it is for Trump, because Trump, I would say, is not someone who's as outspoken about conservative issues socially as Ted Cruz is. Ted Cruz is very anti-abortion. Texas is broadly a pro-choice state. Obviously, that might not sound right, that it's a weird thing to say, but there are a lot of suburban voters that are Republicans that are pro-choice, even though they don't vote that way. There are a lot, and you look at exit polls, the majority or at least plurality of Texans think abortion should be illegal in all or most cases. Just check 2020 or 2022 exit polls. That is true. And so if Allred can really polarize the electorate to kind of be an abortion related election, that's going to really help Democrats up and down the ballot. So maybe we see Colin Allred, if he runs on abortion, hammers Ted Cruz for his stances on that. Maybe he wins over some Republican voters in the suburbs that are not happy with the Dobbs decision. And that gives him room to grow in North Houston. It gives him room to grow in San Antonio and Austin. It gives him room to grow in Dallas-Fort Worth, which is our next area we're going to talk about. Obviously, Dallas County itself is already very blue. Biden won it by 32, but in 2018, Beto O'Rourke did better. He won it by 33. Again, that's not too impressive an overperformance in an urban county. So I would say maybe Allred runs even with Biden here. I don't really see too much weakness for Ted Cruz there. This is not that bad of a showing compared to his other showings in Austin or whatever. But Tarrant County, this is pretty bad, I would say. O'Rourke ran ahead of Biden here by a pretty similar amount to that in Dallas. And again, Dallas County has a lot of suburbs itself, but it's more of an urban county than, say, Tarrant or Collin or Denton. And for that reason, I think that O'Rourke's performance there is a bit more mediocre than it was in the suburbs because, again, Beto O'Rourke midterms, Democrats do very well in urban areas, and they will really polarize the electorate and win big margins even if they don't get a ton of votes, right? Obviously, turnout decreases, which benefits Republicans, but in terms of margins, percentages, Democrats do well here. The fact that Ted Cruz did that poorly in a suburban county in a midterm is really bad. So I would say Biden probably wins Tarrant by 4 or 5. Maybe Cruz wins it, or Cruz loses it by 6 or 7. I also expect Ted Cruz to lose Collin County, not Denton. Collin County, he lost it by 6% he won it by 6% in 2018. I can't talk today, but he won it by 6% in 2018. 4% margin of victory for Trump here in 2020. I think Trump's going to lose it, and I think Ted Cruz is going to lose it with him. Denton, more of a toss-up county, but if you made me bet, I would say Colin Allred wins it. This is kind of his home turf. I think he can get a bit of a hometown boost here because he is from the DFW area, and Ted Cruz I don't think is. And so, yeah, we'll call Denton maybe. Cruz loses it by literally a couple hundred or maybe 1,000 votes. Doesn't matter too much because it's a vote. It's right. Like, there's no county electoral college. It's just votes net. And I would say because Colin Allred will not be netting too many votes from a 50-50 county, doesn't matter. But symbolically, Denton County, I think, is important for Democrats to win. And then, yeah, that's kind of where you're at. I would expect Ted Cruz to do really poorly in Dallas because that's where Allred's from. I think he's going to do pretty poorly in Austin because he's just so hated there. San Antonio and Houston are going to trend towards Democrats just because I don't think Ted Cruz is super weak there, but the abortion issue, again, really hurts Republicans. And then in the Rio Grande Valley, I do think Ted Cruz will underperform Trump, but I think he's going to hold well enough there that he'll improve from 2018. And he's going to win by, I think, maybe a little less than 2018. I think Ted Cruz wins by like 2.3, like just over 2%. I haven't built a model for it yet, but I think he wins by maybe like 2%, maybe a little more. And in 2018, he won by 2.6. Bluer national environment, but turnout maybe favors Democrats in a presidential year in a state like Texas. Donald Trump, I think, is going to hurt Republicans in the suburbs at the top of the ticket, especially if he is in jail, which the latest indictment, a lot of people think that. I don't know yet. So I really can't provide commentary on that because I'm also not a legal expert. But what I will say is that if Trump is in jail, that unambiguously hurts Republicans. And then even without Trump being in jail, I think he's really toxic in the suburbs no matter how you slice it. And that hurts Ted Cruz and down ballot Republicans. So Democrats have a path here. I would say it's a state that they really should contest. 2024 is a good year for it, for Democrats to start really laying the groundwork for Texas to become a toss-up. I think Ted Cruz is a weak incumbent. He's not, particularly popular. The plurality of Texans do not approve of him. So, or rather, they don't disapprove, but, only 45% approval as a pretty well-known senator is not that good. So, yeah, Ted Cruz is vulnerable. I would say he's a favorite to win right now, but it's a close favorite. And I think Democrats are really going to invest in this race, and that's what they should do. So, thank you so much for watching again. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.